Dear ISC Alumni, dear friends of the ISC, dear guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first ISC Alumni session at the Gallen Symposium. My name is Christian and I was part of the 50th International Students Committee, and I am honored to be part of this ISC Alumni Committee as well. We are privileged to be able to foster a unique global community of former ISC team members. It's a community that values and cultivates the contact with each other. And there are, of course, many things that connect us, but there's one thing above all, and this is obviously the annual pilgrimage to the St. Gallen Symposium in May. But what is it exactly that connects us on a more deeper level? Or in other words, what is our collaborative advantage? Of course, in our team years, we have all met countless business partners. We have tracked down leaders of tomorrow. We have traveled, invited unique speakers, have written letters by hand, organized receptions, drawn master plans in mammoth sessions, assembled furnitures and decorations, and spent endless nights printing and assembling participants' badges. But there's something else. It is a passion for fostering dialogue and building bridges between the generations. In fact, when we asked you, the ISC Alumni Committee, what topic you wish for a first ISC Alumni session, it was very promptly that you chose the following topic: the value of cross-generational collaboration. What are key learnings from 51 years of St. Gallen Symposium? We asked ourselves, well, how do you best approach such a topic? What is the best way to look back at over half a century of International Students Committee? Well, we decided to do what we do best. We bring different generations at the table and let them talk, let them discuss, try to bring in as many different perspectives as possible, and then try to find a conclusion, find common ground. And this is exactly what we will do today. I hope that after this session, you will not only have gained insights into the work of the ISC from back then and today, but also are inspired to talk, to interact, to share. Because in my humble opinion, I think these are the cornerstones of true collaborative advantage. Without further ado, I would like to invite our two phenomenal topic leaders to the stage. And I invite you to give me a big round of applause for Vivian Bernett and Christoph Loos.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. I think it's quite cozy to not be in such a packed room. I think all the sessions before were very packed, so thank you everybody for being here. Me and Christoph are very excited to lead this session. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to talk about the ISC, the St. Gallen Symposium, and the idea of cross-generational dialogue. Well, in the name of cross-generational dialogue, we do this panel cross-generational. We're going to have two panels on here with 3 former team members, also through all the decades, so it's always from the 20th, 30th, and somewhere between 40 and 50th team. And me and Christoph are gonna lead the panels. Myself, I'm Vivian. I'm currently one of the heads of the organizing committee. I've joined the ISC back in 2019 and been a team member for 2 years. I was responsible for the Nordics and participant services, so for all the ISC alumni, you kind of know what I did. And yeah, I would be a business administration major, but I haven't been really studying for the past 3 years. And then Christoph has been in the 22nd team. He's the CEO of Hilti, as I think most of you know, and we're really looking forward to moderate this panel. Also maybe to who is in the room, and maybe also the explanation if you use some vocabulary that maybe you don't know if you weren't in the ISC. I think when we looked it up, it was like roughly 60% alumni. I think we're even more, so apologize if we fall into like old habits and weird vocabulary. Maybe ask your seating neighbor what it means. They probably will know. So what is it all about? Christian already told us we're gonna want to find the key learnings from 51 years of intergenerational dialogue. And on the first panel, we're going to focus on what has been the contribution of the St. Gallen Symposium to the cross-generational dialogue in the good and maybe also what we could do better, could have done better, still can improve. And on the second panel, we got really gonna focus in comparison to the St. Gallen Symposium and the dialogue on the ISC experience. So we're gonna see what are the key takeaways and the key learnings and what stayed with you forever and still remembers you of the ISC and what you've learned. So now I think I talked enough, and I hand it over to Christoph to introduce our first panel.
Thank you, Vivian, for talking and for setting the scene. I would like to invite our three first panelists. We have 6 fantastic panelists, all ex-teamies. That's one of the vocabulary. Who has actually an ISC connection? It's much more than 60%, yeah. Okay. So it's this is a family gathering, I have a feeling. So I invite Rosalind Huisman, Nele Klüver, and Sian Rus to the panel. Rosie has been in the 21st team, is a managing partner of a strategy consulting boutique today, focusing on digital transformation. Nele, I think we all know her face because she moderated the online version of it last year, is a self-employed consultant and coach. And Sian is the youngest generation, 50s team, and is still a bachelor student here at the International Affairs. You would have been done already, probably also, if you hadn't.
My parents are already looking at the watches. So.
Very good. So the first panel is on intergenerational dialogue and the symposium's contribution. And we would like to start with a reality check. How well has that actually happened in your year? And maybe we can approach it by you giving a rating on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 low, 10 high. How well has it happened? And then you explain your rating. You want to start, Nede?
Yes, sure. The very honest answer is I have no clue. And I give you the reason why. So when I was a teamie in the 36th symposium, we were deep in the trenches of making this happen in the background. I was participant service, so between the check-in desk and the information desk. I attended one session during that symposium, and there, yes, I remember a student asking a question. But so my gut feel was we threw students and business leaders into this site, and then we're hoping that something magical will happen. And I'm sure there was magic happening, but I couldn't give you a number for that. And that's maybe one thing that I realize now, that within here, I think there's a lot of little formats and things that try to create that dialogue even more than it was 14 years ago for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, maybe I would just make a guess, and I would say 6. Because for me, the symposium is more than just a conference itself. It's actually kind of a mission that goes on all year round. And during the symposium, during my symposium, we had a hybrid symposium because of COVID. So I wasn't quite sure whether this intergenerational dialogue really takes place in a digital format. I think it's more difficult to kind of, have the spontaneous meetings, which sometimes are the best. But actually, we just talked about that, Rosalind and I, and she said that she had some really great encounters last year, so I'm really happy about that.
Rosalind?
Well, I can only relate to what Nele said, that while organizing the symposium, you don't really realize what's going on, but I can relate to what the sponsors told me when I visited them. And they said that's what made them come again and again and again. And it is like the mixture between students and professionals. So I'd probably go for a 7.
I'm positively surprised with these answers. I mean, I relate back to that as well. My experience actually also does not come from my teamie year, but then from participating many years back. I would have rated it worse. I also see that there is this perception of, business leaders of today come because of that interaction with students. But for me, it was actually more myth than reality. There is the students are here, it's organized by students, I have sympathy for that, I want to support, I come. But that there is really a content discussion going on, that does not happen while you sip a coffee or while you sit in the aula. And I have experienced that this needs to be organized much more. Can you relate to that? I mean, you have been in the youngest team. There has been now, you have introduced a number of formats actually. Can you maybe speak about that?
Yeah, actually, I had a really cool conversation just earlier with a lot this year, and he said, I had a great discussion with someone, finally, because he said, I don't have enough time here. You would need 2 weeks to really have a deep talk for 5 hours with someone, and then you get to the interesting topics. And so I think that's a big question that we maybe have to answer in the future, formats that give you time, because I think good discussions, good topic discussions need time. So one crazy idea would be maybe, bring some participants together with young people and just put them in a small house in the mountains and just close them up for a week, you know? And maybe that would also be a new format to introduce.
Well, Sian, I'm sure you're going to organize that next year, and the next team is going to invite you to do that. So maybe to you, Nele, you said you cannot really remember. I heard that from a lot of team members who experienced the symposium themselves. I only have it now as one of the heads, and I can say I really enjoy it, and I think I heard from a lot of people that they actually had really good conversations. But do you think, or can you imagine now being here, you've only been here for a few hours, but did you see maybe a change in what kind of participants are here, or like how international the audience is? Maybe you could tell us more on that.
One impression I have, and I also know that was changed a couple of years ago, is actually how the leaders of tomorrow are, kind of found. So there's only 100 that come over the essay that are, I think, still traditional students, so they have to be enrolled in a university, and where the other 100 are a knowledge pool of just inspirational young people. And I almost feel that those people can act more like a bridge, because they are not from academia purely, but they have been in the business world or have been, kind of out there a little bit more. And so we discussed earlier that it almost feels like back in the days, the leaders of tomorrow, the leaders of today felt for us very old and gray, and the leaders of tomorrow were very young and studency, and now it feels like more of a continuum. So that hopefully helps to foster that dialogue a little bit more. Yeah.
Maybe as well also to follow up on different formats. I don't know who of you was here in the morning, but we tried out a new format this morning together with Zeit, and we actually sent the participants all over to Square, and when they arrived, they got a paper with a QR code on, and then scanned the QR code, got 5 questions on the phone, answered them, and then actually we were paired with somebody who answered the questions in an opposite way. Do you think, Rosalind, that something like this, those kind of formats can improve the dialogue, and also maybe really get the people to mix, and because I think they're usually really like moving in groups?
I totally think so, yeah. But just what we were talking about, that in like you're putting them in a cabbage, or you're forcing them to work together, since the time is limited. You need, you can't let it to serendipity. I think I'm sure it fosters the dialogue, and I would strongly recommend trying that more out. I'm curious to hear what it was, and as what you to ask you, Nele, I think it changed now from. I mean, it was 30 years ago when I was here. I see students being much more active, whether that's the leaders of tomorrow, whether they set up differently, or whether that's just that the younger generation is more used to speak up than when we were younger, when I was younger. I think that what I've seen like today only is really, it really is great, is more cross-generation than in the earlier days, to my perception. Mm-hmm.
I've just been, I facilitated a lot talk, which is a round where you invite, 15, 16 leaders of tomorrow, and also organize that dialogue happens. And I was supposed to moderate. a funny anecdote. I ran into Wolfgang Schürer 2 minutes before my lot talk. He said, "What are you doing? I want to talk to you." And I said, "I have no time. I have to go to this lot talk." And he said, "Can I join?" And I said, "Sure, I introduce you as a student, as a leader of tomorrow." And then we had a funny conversation with him. But that's just a little anecdote. The feedback there, we had similar discussions, on what works, what doesn't work. And the students said it's great, this pairing one-on-one, and that is when you really get a good discussion going. But they also confirmed the thesis that we put up that it needs actually to be organized. Just throwing them into one room is not good enough. And also believing that this happens here at the atrium is also not good enough. I believe that the profile of the participants, leaders of today and leaders of tomorrow, plays a big role in whether that gets going or not. And you alluded to that already. Rosalind, do you remember, how would you describe the leaders of tomorrow back in your time? Do you know still any remembering on what kind of profile, age, where they came from, etc.?
I think they didn't even exist. They were just students, right? They were just students who wrote an essay, and I think 250 or something it was then, so the percentage was quite big compared to the manager participants. But
exactly, and that is the point. I think we call them leaders of tomorrow or whatever, but students existed, whatever the name was, because we were in similar. I was actually one year behind her. The one thing that the symposium did over the last, 10, 15, 20 years is actually to upgrade the profile significantly. One is what you said. We have these 100 coming through the essay contest, and then the hand-picked topic leaders, or how they are called, which are also leaders of tomorrow, and the decision that it's no longer bachelor students. It's actually, in most cases, postgraduates. It's PhD students. It's people that have done an MBA and then move on and are entrepreneurs. And it makes a big difference whether you have a 21-year-old kid or a 25-year-old or 28-year-old person there, and that, I think, contributed to actually making it work better together with organizing it. But I think we can still actually improve.
But for both sides there, also for the students. If you're 21, you hit a question and you say, wow, I talked to one, but what remains, it has more impact if you can relate better, I think.
Exactly.
So
Can I do one quick challenge on that one?
Oh, many.
I totally agree, and I think that that especially when it comes to like this humbleness and respect for hierarchy, maybe a 28-year-old, is just, they have been experienced these situations. They have been in room with more senior people and maybe raise their hand or be more critical. On the other side, maybe a 21-year-old knows a little bit better about NFTs and, can teach something to the older generation as well. So I feel, at least if we look at the technology development and so on, where, I don't, NFT, I have no clue, but maybe, I should listen to a 20-year-old one, or a cryptocurrency, or whatever it might be. So yes, from a personality and development point of view, yes, but from a topic point of view, I'm not sure.
Yeah. And in a perfect world, you have a very young person mature enough to participate, but that's rare.
And sometimes asking ignorant questions, or that seem ignorant, can also be very interesting. And I think that's also something that you kind of learn at the ISC, because you have all these meetings with important people. And so I would also challenge that a little bit. I think also the format of the essay competition is great, but maybe someone that, I don't know, is a videographer and makes really good documentaries, maybe this would also be a format that could be considered. So why always writing?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, we've actually discussed this a lot as well in the team, and the second group that you look for is the knowledgeful, how we call them. But maybe to keep on going on the leaders of tomorrow, also every year we have a team. I think they've grown quite a lot during all the years. I think someone just before, I think it was you, Sarah, said it was 22, and now we're 33 members. Maybe to you, Sian, you've been we were together in the 50th team. What do you see the role of an ISC team member in this cross-generational dialogue on the symposium and during the year? What role do do we have to take?
For me, it's a very crucial role because, from my experience, it's like an idea was kind of planted inside my brain now. The need for exchange, cross-generational, but also across other borders. And I think if you look at how many alumni we have already and where they're all at, and still with this little idea in their brain that maybe makes a difference in a meeting, at a kitchen table, I think this is also an impact that we sometimes don't really measure, but is quite great, actually.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Nele and Rosalind, maybe you can fill in and tell us what was your role when you were a team member, and maybe what you have wished it to be, or what did you expect it to be, and how would you have liked to improve it?
I feel like for me personally, the intergenerational dialogue happened a lot during the market trip, where you actually, you know, as a 22-year-old, I was back then, walk into a CEO office, has an hour with them, and they not just listen to you, but take you seriously most of the time. And to then walk out of that room and say, hey, you know, I'm only 22, but someone like that listened to me, and somehow my voice got heard. And I would hope that that also, you know, is then true for all the other team members, and that this, yes, there's still respect and humbleness from, you know, all the careers these people have done, but that we, get this understanding that still we can raise our voice, and we can have an opinion, and we can have the power to maybe change someone's mind. And what I would have done, or I think at the end, as already also alerted to, you are so in the trenches of making this happen on an organizational level. And I don't have a solution, because it's also so much of the passion I had for this, and so much that I learned from being professional, how to organize, how to, all that I don't want to miss. So I don't want to be a participant at my own symposium and just sit there and listen to and ask critical questions. But maybe the year before, the year after, as an alumni, when you're still young and you can come to the symposium, maybe there's a place to do that. Yeah.
For you, Rosalind?
Well, yeah, what impressed me is the openness with which I was accepted when I did my tour in the country, and the curiosity towards what my thoughts were. I think that's what really had an impact. And then, of course, organizing it, seeing the happy people, and feeling the atmosphere, that, and you think, wow, we contributed to people having, we called it that the 3 days in May. I think that's gone now, but that was the spirit then, and I think that was very rewarding to be able to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go to a final question to the panelists, opportunity for one or two of you to ask a question to the panelists. Anybody? Frederick.
Just surprised. This idea is so great, that intergenerational exchange, why has it not been, as far as I know, copied?
Well, what I know, it has been copied. There is, I don't know, I've working for the Nordic countries. I know, Livia, you've been too. She's sitting somewhere. Yeah, there you are. And there's the NHH Symposium at the NHH University in Bergen, if I'm correctly. And they also have a quite similar concept. They're also organized by students. They invite students, and they invite the current leaders. I think they're like 20, so like half as old as we are. So they've copied it. We're actually been invited, so as the head. So we will see, and hopefully be in Norway next spring and check it out. So
I want to add a perspective, because we just had exactly the same question in this Leaders of Tomorrow talk, and I handed that answer actually over to Wolfgang, because he was in that session as well. And Wolfgang added a good perspective to that, and said it has a lot to do with the culture of the country in which the university is and the place happens. The guy that asked the question came from SGS in Paris, And he said, you know, they tried that in Paris. After 3 years, it was gone, and it was just never working. And then the conclusion was there is, you know, the top-down, much more hierarchical culture that does not allow for that, while the Swiss culture is different and entertains that more. There's probably something to it. And then the second, I would argue, and that's also credit to the foundation and many people that have worked here, we've also actively improved on that concept and used that as a strategic positioning, you know, and for instance have created a network of more than 100 professors around the world that then influence their best students to apply and so on, so that we get this unique positioning, and that you cannot just, you know, switch on within a year or two. Yeah. Andreas.
One last thought on that is, I think the strength of St. Gallen always was from the very beginning, as I understood, that it was bi-directional. There were many who tried to copy it, like Business of Tomorrow conference in New York, where I participated once then as an ISC representative, where people just had this old setting of executives talking to students. So it was only one direction. And I think St. Gallen from the very beginning was this, and I think in the late 60s, beginning of 70s, it was really new. We have our place on the table also for the young generation. And while it doesn't work automatically and things like you said, it was clear also in the Marktgespräche, in the meetings with the executives, it was for both to be interesting and for both to tell their opinion and for both to ask questions, get the right to get answers to these questions. But many of the copy was executive, a lot of HR executives actually, talking to a lot of students listening. And so I think we were kind of ahead of that. Now it's maybe changing, and I think we have to be careful what is coming from competitors, but competitors are always good. I would say, from my opinion, we were the first to make it, as I said, from both sides.
Very good. Ulrike.
I'm part of the Board of Trustees, and I would like to ask the three panelists their opinion on the intergenerational dialogue between the Board of Trustees and you, in your turn, and you as the younger generation. It's been a hot point of discussion within the Board of Trustees as well as with our current team, as Vivi knows quite well. So what are your experiences, what are your expectations, what would have been your wishes?
I just was quickly asked to repeat the questions because we're also streaming online, so I think they don't understand your questions asked in the audience. So Ulrike asked, she's sitting on our Board of Trustees, what are the expectations or the current relations back when you were team members, and what were your expectations and future role maybe as well of the relationship between the Board of Trustees and the teams.
And what was the reality also?
And the reality, yeah.
And maybe we start from, you know, longer back. I want to avoid older, longer back, and then middle, and then younger.
Well, in my time, it was very distant. The Board of Trustees, we were invited to dinner once, like at the beginning, and there was always this famous picture taken on the stairs of the teamies. And that was about it, actually. They were, yeah. Maybe it was because Wolfgang was still very active when we were teamies, so maybe he was acting in that role more. But I couldn't even name them now to you.
Helmut
That's
Kohl
not
was
due
in
to
there.
my age.
Helmut Kohl was in there. Yeah. Was it even one higher?
There was an advisory council.
Okay, never mind.
Then we realized one has been dead for 4 years. Still on the list.
Okay.
So I remember that Ackermann was in our Board of Trustees, and I remember that he came with his limousine. It was almost like a celebrity arriving, and we were at the window. Oh my God, he's coming! But there was a distance, of course, and you know they walked up the squeaky stairs to the meeting room. And I remember we did have a meeting with the Board of Trustees, which was, I think, a content or a topic meeting. So I think they were trying to do that. I also remember that we were asked to think about and give input to the, I don't know if it was that year's topic or the topic for the next year of the symposium. So for sure trying to include us also in that discussion, but yeah, it was this one meeting. It was a little bit glorified and a little bit, yeah, a lot of respect from a very young group of students.
Would you have wished to have more?
So it's very personal. I had no clue with 22 was going on in the political and business landscape of the world. I wouldn't feel back then that I were the right person to decide what's on the agenda, what's next year. Having said that, I think there are people and students and that age that have an opinion and that they should be heard.
Great,
yeah.
thank you. Siam?
Well, the dinner still exists, and it was actually it was really nice. But further than that, I think there is a big space for improvement. What I would have wished, I once had a problem where I felt that I wasn't really heard by the Stiftung, so I voiced it with a member of the board. And this member then told me, well, we have this structure, so you just go to the CEO again of the Stiftung. And so what I would have loved to have is maybe a partnership with one of the board members, where I know I could maybe write a short email. I know you all have a lot to do, but maybe once or twice a month or whatever, I think that would really be nice to just have this, also a little bit this outside perspective more. Because, in D83, which is our office, sometimes it's a little bit, Irrenhaus, you would say, in Swiss German. Sometimes an outside perspective can help.
Good. Thank you very much.
It actually changed recently. Lilienberg, me and Siam both in the 50th team were still there, but this year they stopped the partnership, so we look for a new place, and we actually have a new partnership with Andermatt. So we've been in Andermatt and preparing the whole topic and the whole year, and we're also going to go there for the next 2 years. And how we're preparing, I mean, we come there and we usually get the topic, or we got the topic when we came to the team, and we just had a lot of briefings together with the foundation. I think we also talked a lot among the team, and then if you go out and travel, I think you get your own identification with the topic. So
maybe I can add just one short piece. What is new now, I think, for 2 years is that we have a topic task force also in the team. Where teamies actually do some research on the topic. We have a newsletter that we send around to the whole team with pieces that we find interesting regarding the topic. So I think there's some work going on there, but maybe there's also some space.
And I mean, there is a brain trust out of the foundation that actually is also connecting to think tanks and opinion leaders around the world, McKinsey Institute and so on. There is actually quite some collaboration going on to some of the brightest minds in order to come up with a good topic for the next year. And the ISC team is actually involved. Given that this change happens then from the old to the new team, when you have to decide that, it's typically a few selected, log, etc., that stay there. So not the entire team is there. By the time the new team comes, timing is such that the topic is just decided. Good. I think we have to move on. Big round of applause for our first panel. Dankeschön. Entschuldigung.
Well, I think we directly can ask the next pairing or trio on stage. Now, just to quickly summarize, I think what we talked about, I made some notes, so already come up, it's fine. Regarding the impact, I think we really could do better, and we had a lot of improvements that we talked about, especially when it comes to format, that you kind of have to enforce this dialogue, and that it's really important also to keep on this setting here in St. Gallen, the place, and the whole atmosphere. So I think that was what I took away. Maybe you can fill in, Christoph.
No, that's good.
Okay. Good. Then just let me directly continue and introduce our next round of panelists. So I start here right next to me with Isabel. She's been a member in the 21st and 22nd team. So 1 year together with Christoph, she's now active board member and in the NGO sector. Then next to Christoph, right, is Sarah Heuser-Merker. She was in the 31st ISC team. She's an in-house lawyer of a Swiss bank. And then last but not least, we have Ralph from the 43rd ISC team. He's a co-founder and chief commercial officer of a tech startup for innovation programs. Yeah, now to also give you this first questions, we also would like quickly from all of you opening statement, and since we're talking about the ISC experience, we would like to have a single thing that really stood out during your experience and had an impact on you. Maybe we can start directly with you, Isabel.
Well, I start with something perhaps a little bit different. I think it was excellence. Excellence was something that I learned here. I really think it's something that has been very important for this organization. I think it makes an organization successful, it gives focus, and it attracts good people. I think, and I learned it, and I think I was, I also realized it's nice to work with people who strive for excellence, and I have been able to do it for a good part of my professional life, and this was very rewarding.
I think I need to cheat a little bit. I have a romantic answer and a pragmatic answer. The romantic is very easy because if I look into the room, it's friendship. There's actually quite a few people who went in from my team short notice into this session, even though I tried to tell them not that I'm on stage here. So thank you very much, guys. And the pragmatic one is, I think it is very much complementary to studying here at the business school. Because looking back and now with my professional life, what I lacked a lot in the business school is basically B2B sales, lead generation, automated marketing, and that's pretty much what the Gallen Symposium, the ISC, gives you on its way. There's probably room, or back then there would have been room for improvement in the whole B2B sales thing, but it's the first time a young business student gets in touch with sales, and I think whatever you do in your professional life, being it consulting, entrepreneurship, corporates, sales and stakeholder management and actively listening is pretty much important, and I think that's ISC pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Super.
And you, Sarah?
Also the skills that I learned, definitely, and you know, to come around actually the secretary when you go to an executive, you know, not being afraid anymore of entering into a new situation and actually get an idea across, you know, across generations in the best case. So it's definitely the skills that I learned here, and it's actually interesting because it was told that I'm a lawyer, so that is more educational, and you don't really learn these things while you're studying. So it was just an amazing experience.
I would guess that if we open the door here, the floor here, that many people would echo that we have grown as a person, that you learn sales. I like that answer a lot. That you learn attention to detail, and that
and going the extra mile.
Going the extra mile to how to sell yourself and you know, be smart and how to get things done and get around. And we've grown as a person. Question, has that original idea of the symposium, you know, to foster dialogue, to fight for a liberal society and marketplace, and to use that symposium to foster a dialogue with different stakeholders, has that somehow made it to your list of things that you took away from the ISC, and has that influenced you in one way or the other for your life? Maybe we start with you?
Maybe not right away. I mean, I always liked the idea. I thought it was a very good idea, but I think I only took that away when I started my career, my professional career, because you suddenly realize that you need the exchange between the generations. You need the experience of maybe, you know, all the people in I would say, higher positions. On the other hand, now, when I'm, you know, having worked a few years, you need to go back and actually talk with the younger generation so that you get forward and that you understand what kind of problems they have or needs or what they wish for the future, etc. But I would say the idea was always good, and we knew that this was the idea of the symposium, but I don't think when we were organizing, I don't think it was, it started to grow that quickly.
Yeah.
Well, if I knew back then what I know now, I would have sized the chance of being an ISC member very differently. So again, what we discussed before on stage here, that this intergenerational dialogue is not just happening by chance. I think it's very much same with the ISC team, because back then, if I knew I want to become an entrepreneur, I would have loved to go through this ISC alumni list and just give them some calls. But back then it was rather formal. We got really trained to be like, if we approach an alumni, like do a very long, very nice email, and it's eine Freude und Ehre zugleich. I think it's horrible. I hope, and that's my goal. And that's why I also said I joined this discussion, because I think we need to get to the point where we can grab the phone and get an ISC alumni on the phone, because it's an alumni, and that would change a lot on, again, the perspective, because then you can talk to a consultant, to an entrepreneur who has been in professional life, and also give his or her opinion a little bit on what you're going to do now in this year and why this is important, also the big setup, because my biggest problem was how to organize the beer that it is called at the dinner night. So it's good to have this intergenerational dialogue, I think, also there on purpose. We need to organize it there as well.
Very good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would agree with what you say, and I also think that the ISC alumni could be much more involved in an intergenerational dialogue. I do think that probably the most part of us would be quite willing to help here, we will be discussing this probably tomorrow. This part is going on, it's only started. So perhaps at the end we also have results. And in my personal life, yes, this intergenerational and the liberal society and the democracy, that's something I'm doing in the NGO that I work for. So this is still my goal. This is still something that really drives me. And so yes, I think it's even now becoming more and more important, those two ideas. I also think that idealism, that what we are talking about, skills, about a lot of, that you learn to become a salesman. Yes, obviously we talk about marketing and selling and everything, but I think we all were very idealistic at the same time. It's about intrinsic motivation, it's about doing something for society, and doing it for free. We didn't get paid for what we did for 1 or 2 or 3 years. And I think this idea that you have to do something for society is something that I liked and that I still consider very important.
And that started in your ISC time?
Well, it was the first time that I really did something, before I hadn't been involved in these kind of things, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe to follow up on especially what you said, Ralph, and then now you took on Isabel, with being more engaged with the ISC alumni. So just to quickly explain to everybody who's not an alumni, tomorrow there's our big Jubilee, the 50th Jubilee, because we couldn't celebrate it last year because of COVID. So there's going to be a whole celebration day and also a big party, even the evening, with more than 700 participants at the Olma halls. So that's why everybody's here.
Also.
Well, maybe to get on that, and you said, hey, we should get more in contact with the team and maybe give them something back. If you now, let's say, will kind of be a mentor for a team member and be in contact with the current team, what would you tell them? What would be your advice, and what would you maybe tell them what you would have done differently back when you were a teamie, and what they kind of should think of and consider when they are a team member? Maybe directly to you, Sarah.
Yeah, I think really to engage with more alumni. I only use my network of, the team is maybe the ones before and then after, maybe a few. I also want to add that we had a few exchanges with board members, actually, of the foundation. So, I mean, there were one or two who were really engaged and were regularly at the Dufourstrasse 83 as well. But I think I should have used that much more, and actually also given more, because, you know, then you move on, you have other things to do after university, and as I said, I was in a bit a different world, maybe, not world, but yeah, a different focus. Went on with the bar exam and everything, and then it kind of, you know, goes a little bit into the background. And then occasionally you realize, oh, the St. Gallen Symposium, it's on, and you think it's great, but then other things taken over, and I think I could have done better on that. Yeah. And maybe it would help if former team members would also promote that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Isabel? Well, it's a little bit provocative. It's work-life balance. I got the wrong idea, because work-life balance was, everything was in Dufourstrasse 83, and work and life and everything that was going on in my life for 2 or 3 years was at one place. And if you want to keep on with this concept for all your life, it's a bit tough. So you don't learn about work-life balance at the ISC, and I don't advise anybody to do it different. I think that was the great part of it, that we were like really in for several months all together, and there was nothing else than this symposium.
But set it in context, right?
So?
Set it in context.
Yeah, and yeah, you have to know this is like one experience, and you have to learn to balance your life afterwards. You cannot go on like this forever.
For you, Ralph?
Yeah, I would really stress out, enjoy the ride. I mean, it's going to be bumpy, you're going to do a lot of FOOPs. Actually, my whole company now talks about FOOPs. I'm not sure if that's still a word.
Yeah.
They always say, excuse me, Ralph, I haven't done the FOOPs. So the new hires always learn FOOPs, so that stayed with me as well. But really enjoying the ride. I mean, I think it is similar to also like afterwards being in professional life, you have so many ups and downs and more downs, and what brings you out of it, again, is the same in professional life, is the team and the friends you're going to make there. Sounds very romantic again, but I think looking back at the St. Gallen Symposium, it is somehow a bit of a romantic thing. You're trying to build as really clueless team such a thing like here, and somehow every year it happens. Somehow the beer is cool at the open house nights. So I would really stress out the people to enjoy the ride and to set it also in context a bit. I think because it's not the lock going to tell them like, this is not how your whole professional life should look like. This can be really well done by an alumni saying, look, it's going to be tough, but make sure to also every now and then. I forgot my mom's birthday during my year. Yeah. It was horrible. I remember well. I mean, that's how stressful it was, right? So I think that's a good point.
Now, with regard to time, okay, Monica, I just wanted to say we don't take questions, but I cannot say no. Yeah, clearly.
I want to say something about the relations you just mentioned between the alumni, the ISC alumni. And you know, we did quite an effort to help to finance this square. And that was the relationship to all those ISC as well. This kind of list we used to raise the money for that. And I think there's a big thank you as well. So there was a relationship.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment. Sorry?
Can I just add?
Yeah, sure.
Just trying to add from the perspective of the overall ISC alumni community, where I was the president for 20 years. I think it's very good if you don't forget that you as ISC alumni are part of the overall alumni organization as well. And so the intergenerational dialogue you can also have if you feel a little bit hesitant to talk to a ISC alumni, you can also talk to a I'm sure you have straight access, and they can always address this person tattoo.
Perfect, Os.
On the slopes.
Don't forget that you should not operate in
Yeah.
I think, as Monica said, I think that the square 65 million is actually an impressive contribution of the alumni community at large.
Yes.
I think many of the contributors, most of them are alumni, one or two are also ISC alumni.
Thank you very much. What I take away, and that actually motivates me a lot, and we will have discussions on that also tomorrow in workshops and how to involve the alumni. What I take out of this is that there is a strong emotional bond, that's also why so many are here, but that there's more than just a romantic, I meet old friends. That's actually tangible things, because also that happens to me. If I was sitting on the panel, I would have answered similarly. The time, as intense as it was, has actually, or because it was so intense, has actually influenced us as a person. And our values, our thinking, what is important, how we work, our skills. And that alone, I think is worth still supporting it. And with that also allow future generations actually to go through that. But, and that's maybe the closing question to all of you. That all sounds romantic. And I have to say, when I look back at my time, it was still doable next to getting through HSG and not investing, 1 to 3 years of your time. Well, that has changed significantly. And the current team, and I really have to give them a lot of credit, they have invested 2 or 3 years because they needed 3 years to finally get the symposium going, with all these COVID stuff, etc. Proof is in the pudding. Imagine your daughter starts next year in St. Gallen, or has started this year. Do you recommend your daughter to apply for ISC in the current context of investing 1 to 2 years of your life?
I have 2 daughters, and I would definitely recommend it, yes. Even if it's hard work, but they learn for life, and no one can take that away. Definitely. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, strong, yes. I think it's also, there I'm with you, it's not only there's so many associations in St. Gallen, I think that makes the university also very strong. So being engaged in one of them very intensively, I think it's really value added, and obviously the symposium is a really good choice.
You learned your sales pitch.
Well, obviously, yes, and I did it already, and I'm also very happy that there are even from our generation, there are already kids from ISC members that are already in the team. So it's not a hypothetical question. It's not only me that have really advised their kids to do the ISC. We have like intergenerational ISC families.
I see one here, yeah?
Well, there is Barbara Halusa as well.
Right, exactly.
And, there are, well, I know the parents and I don't know more. So I know, so I think yes, obviously.
Excellent.
Yes.
With that, I propose that we close, because we have to be very respectful for Vivian, who goes on stage to close the entire symposium in 10 minutes from now. But, final comment from you, Alex.
I have to use the podium for one small thing, but I want to say, I want to talk to you, Vivian. I've been attending many symposia, of course, and every year I bring a minister from Singapore. And there's a lot of pressure for me each year, and a lot of fear, will it work out? And will they perform, the team? Because I'm selling a product in advance. And despite the fact that your team didn't have a live symposium now for 2 years, the last 1.5 days were outstanding. And I want you to tell this to your team.
Thank you.
And when I left the minister off right now, I brought her down to the car, and then she basically got out back again, looked at me and said, I want to really thank you, Alex. And I said, yes. So I said, 6 weeks ago, I had to take a decision whether I go to Davos or to St. Gallen. And because she could only choose one trip from and the cabinet, and she said, and I'm so happy about my decision.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Don't clap too much, otherwise I'm gonna already cry. So I have to save my tears for later. No, thank you a lot. It was very, very great as well having her, and I think also from our team, thank you to all the generations before. It's the foundation that we could build on, that we can lean on and rely on, and thank you so much for that. And thank you for being here in the session, and thank you again for your kind words.
Bravo.